A leader sort of look at a twist in words, leads from the back rather than leading from the front. My love for red wine and single malts, some people know. What inspires Manish today is trying to build a better Asian Paints.
If you had to go about building an Asian Paints all over again today from scratch, what would you do differently?
Definitely not differently. I think the kind of focus we had on building a core competency-led, focused enterprise only on the coatings world, I think that has given us sort of the foundation to do whatever we are doing today in the world of decor and really building a different enterprise. I don't think we would have done it again. If the world had given India greater opportunities, I'm sure we would have done this a little faster and maybe would have been slightly larger than where we are at today.
What's the one question leaders should ask themselves before choosing to elevate someone in his or her role?
For me, it's if I was to pick somebody to lead the company, I would want that person to be comfortable leading people who may be individually in their respective functional areas or their areas of expertise, greater experts on pretty much any topic than, let's say, the leader is. The leader should be capable of dealing with that. More importantly than dealing with that, being able to harness that for sort of take up bigger opportunities that they might be able to conquer.
Manish, can you share a significant failure or setback that you faced? How did you navigate it? And what advice do you have for leaders when dealing with failure?
Early days into the career, sort of going live on our ERP. We did go live 1st April or 4th April, everything was on. On 21st April 2001, Asian Paints actually never built a single dealer on that day because essentially the servers didn't operate. That was a bit of a challenge. Company this big with the number of dealers we had at that point of time, with the number of operations not billing for a day, was unprecedented. What was recognized in the analysis of that was that we'd done everything right, all processes were correct, but in trying to sort of sometimes over-engineer reporting solutions, we got the process right, we got the transformation correct, we got them to use it correctly, but what was wrong was probably a last thing that somebody could have checked. And I think that taught the team to be a lot more humble about the scale of operations we ran and what its impact was on technology and its usage. Many times people say that this is wondrous technology. To get one thing right with technology is sometimes relatively easy, but to get it right every minute, every day, every month, every year, and that too multiplied by maybe 1,000 people doing it, I think that really adds to complexity, which is not very easy to simulate. Figuring out how to fix the analytics problem or the reporting problem is something that we can do all along. So I think that taught me that as a mark of leader is, yes, you do indeed stop to take stock in adversity, but you do not take, 5 steps back or run away from the battlefield.
Manish, what's your favorite failure and what do you think that it's taught you more about leading people?
What it taught you about humans and people was that there were some people who, when faced with adversity, will succumb and sort of not really rise up to them. And then there will be others, maybe sometimes even junior mid-managerial personnel, would take and say, Manish, we did everything correct, right? So it should work and we'll make it work. So it's not about, the level of leadership. It's not about the level of hierarchy. It's about just making sure that you have the kind of people who will stand the course when the going is tough.
What's the most brutal feedback you ever received on your leadership or management style? Who did it come from and what did they tell you, Manish?
4th day of job, I was hauled in front of our executive director who said, you've decided to choose a career at Asian Paints based on your educational background and forgotten that one, you're the owner of the company and the company is a paint company. So owner of that company, if they were to join this business, need to learn the paint business. So doesn't matter what you did on education, you will figure out a way to use it, but please learn the business of the company. First lesson was that don't forget who you are as a company. Around the time of looking into new business ventures, I think I have a tendency to be optimistic or maybe more optimistic than the situation on hand. is giving data signals on. And I think the feedback that my CEO at that point of gave me was, Manish, you're just not reading the data signals. You need to have answers for that, and thus do we need to be so optimistic about either what you are wanting to pay for this business, how we will integrate it, or the time it will take us to integrate it. An important feedback on being able to step back in a deal making or in a collaboration situation and look at a slightly broader and bigger picture rather than getting lost in the hurly-burly of the deal making process itself. The last feedback was when I sort of got onto the board, and I think it was a pretty big transition in my own journey as a leader, because for 29 years you had been an executive at a company, and you were now sort of giving up that executive role and joining the board of the company. I think the first board meeting, maybe a couple of times I would have answered quote unquote on behalf of management. And one of my fellow directors at the end of that board meeting came and said, Manish, you just changed sides. Remember that.
Twist in history. What would you do if you didn't have the Asian Paints platform? What was plan B for Manish Choksi?
It would have been a plan A, actually. I packed my bags finishing chemical engineering and MBA and came back to India. And I've still got college friends today who would sort of casual me and tell me that if there was somebody who would have succeeded working for an American company, it would have been Manish. So plan A was just go work for Exxon or Kellogg's, as I had jobs at both of them, and build a career there.
Manish, having seen many leaders and CEOs from your position, how do you think they turn people to believe in a cause?
When one begins the journey, typically you become first from being an executive to being a manager, which means you learn the art of coordinating with people, making sure that the task on hand is properly delineated amongst your team, and that you can get the team to focus on giving their best, making sure finally that you achieve the end result. Then along the journey, a manager becomes a leader. They sort of graduate by not doing only those mechanical tasks that we talked about that a manager does, but sort of leading by example. But most importantly, I think the leader spends a lot of time building culture, building sort of the team by itself, and making sure that all the people in the team fit with each other. Probably the most important thing about being a good leader is to be an authentic person.
And what are two most underrated or unused qualities by leaders today?
One of the qualities probably that is underrated is humility. A leader sort of look at a twist in words, leads from the back rather than leading from the front. The other big quality that people look at is leader makes a purpose pretty clear. Not the task on hand, but the purpose of as to why we're doing what we are doing. If there is clarity in that, there is far greater cohesion, far greater collaboration amongst team members. And that's what really a leader gets to do.
Manish, what's a common myth or misconception about leadership you would like to clarify?
As a person, you got to recognize that you are probably much bigger than just that position, that role that you've been given as an individual. It's pretty critical for you to know that that is the case. The other thing to know is that you are not a know-it-all. There is always a need to bring in more people into a situation to be able to get the job done, and being able to recognize that there is something that you cannot do by yourself and reaching out to those that can help you do it at that point of time.
Having seen this closely, in promoter-led companies which are run by professionals, how should CEOs lead?
My first sort of ask of that CEO would be getting to know the company, getting to know the business, getting to know the family stakeholders within the enterprise, and understanding pushes and pulls and the passion. Two, I think bringing your expertise and your sort of vision of how you would fulfill the purpose of the company, and having a frank discussion about it with promoters or the owners who are stakeholders either on the board, and aligning that I think is pretty critical. And in that alignment, velocity of what you expect to do is probably the most critical, because I think many a times leaders get what they want to do correct, how they want to do correct, but they may be mistimed, so to speak, in some sense of word.
Manish, with somebody looking very closely at this at Asian Paints, how do you think big data and AI is going to drive change in leaders and leadership?
think what's really is going to change in this new data-driven artificial intelligence sort of capable organization is essentially going to be the ability to analyze all of this data that we've got inside the company in real time. Earlier, you could still analyze the data, but all of that was done in kind of batch mode. But today, with the capabilities of processing data and with the capabilities of understanding the data, you are able to discern patterns or inferences from data in real time, almost prompting people to make decisions based on that inference or that analysis in real time. I think we are going to find organizations that will play it sort of hard. They will be number crunched, very hard-nosed organizations and taking decisions based on data. On the other hand, you will see more consumer-centric organization look at this data as a means to get closer to the customer.
Manish, what's the most common piece of career advice that you've heard of but completely disagree with?
Greater part of my career, I looked at technology and how technology could be leveraged within the enterprise out there. So I think the greatest myth is what you learn. Are you going to be able to directly apply it, or are you going to have to apply it in a very different manner?
And what are behaviors that good leaders should avoid?
I think what they should avoid is not being true to themselves or authentic, not recognizing that their team can contribute very significantly to their success. I would say from grounds up, from creating sort of the vision of what you want to do to how you execute it and what kind of pace at which you would like to execute it. In all of that, there is a greater collaboration that your team can provide. Not recognizing that would be a tremendous mistake.
3 words that describe Manish Choksi's leadership style.
One is I like to be creative. The other is I love to learn things that I don't really know anything about. Last is I love to be passionate about whatever I'm doing.
Manish, is there something that you wish you had known more of about leading people?
2 things probably. One is if I had listened more and if I was more patient than I am.
What are the 3 most important things that form part of your daily routine?
I think from an oversight perspective, the biggest thing is, are we sticking to sort of the redefined purpose that we have got, that we would partner with our customers to create their sort of dream homes? 2, are we building the right capabilities? And are there enough signals that we as board members are getting on the kind of capabilities that we are building to sort of succeed in this journey? The third thing would be not forgetting the financial prudence that got us here. In today's day and age, capital is relatively easily available, but not forgetting that conserving capital, being frugal, and making sure that whatever investment comes back to add value to the company. I think that's an important facet that I would want to continue to step check every day.
What are the 1 or 2 traits you look for most at your leaders at Asian Paints?
The fact that they are passionate about what we are doing as a company, and 2, that they bring tremendous expertise and energy to whatever we are doing.
What is your version of innovation in an organization?
I think I'm going to steal my CEO's words in saying doing not only first in India but first in world. All of us, as being in a third world country, we sort of almost imbibe this sort of feeling that we could get away by being, imitation of the West or imitation of somebody who's the leader. For us to aspire to be great companies or great leaders, we need to aspire to be doing global first or being first in the world. I think that is an essential tenet of a leader for tomorrow.
What are 2 things that you value or relate most about the Asian Paints culture? And what are 2 values that you could drive more of, infuse more of in the Asian Paints culture?
The 2 things that I love about the culture is the fact that, we have a fairly loyal team, and, loyalty has been, or long careers have been sort of built at Asian Paints. We built a atmosphere of openness and transparency that has allowed leaders to cut across hierarchies to be able to get to the best solutions that we've been able to give. I think what we would want to change, or what we are currently changing, obviously, is velocity. We were a family-run enterprise, that to multiple families that came together, that brought a little bit of culture where decision-making took much longer. That is something that we are trying to cut and seriously work on to improve the velocity at which the business moves. The second thing would be trying to build a culture where we could bring diverse capabilities and still sort of meld them into this culture. We are a very engineering MBA kind of culture. The left brain is more powerful at Asian Paints than let's say the right. But in the kind of journey that we are on today, where we want to create a decor company, I think we are going to need a lot more of the right brain integrated within the company and allowing those that kind of expertise to really flower and blossom within the company.
Manish, who is inspiring you right now?
One of the leaders is controversial enough. He's a prime minister. The sheer energy that he brings to the job, the passion with which he has made India sort of the cynosure of everybody's eyes. I think at a microcosm level, if you could do that for an enterprise that you were associated with, it would bring wonders to what it has done. Kind of transformation Satya Nadella has done at Microsoft from a desktop and a desktop publishing company to now being sort of the top of the heap at an enterprise level. The transformation that he's been able to create in a very large company. There are multiple ones from the Bansals at Flipkart to Mr. Mukesh Bansal at CureFit, Piyush at Lenskart. Some of these people are great, good friends. It's inspiration on creating an institution from scratch. I think that sort of creator bug in me really draws inspiration on what they have been able to create.
Who's been the greatest influence on your journey as an entrepreneur and why?
Our own founders. There were 4 people who had pretty much no resources. Converse to today's availability of capital regime with VCs and other ideas, they didn't even have the capital. And to be able to create the kind of institution that we've been able to create, I think it's an amazing journey.
Manish, what do you think today's founders can learn from the earlier generation of leaders?
I think the Asian Paints sort of journey inspires me the most. They started the company by selling paint because no paint was being sold in smaller containers or small packs as we call it. They fixed the problem that existed. So I think the biggest thing for any startup, any founder of today, for that matter, any business of today is let's go solve real world problems and let's give solutions that are lasting, that make sense to the consumers at the end of the day. Because if that's not what you are doing, it's very difficult to build a fairly large enterprise on that. Second, they took a long period of time to build this organization. So maybe with today's capital and today's velocity, you could build slightly larger organizations relatively quickly. But what they did was they built it right. This concept that I can build scale and then figure out how to build it right, that probably lands you into more trouble than you have actually bargained for. Also invest in the right amount of things at the right time.
Tell me, if you were to make a dream team with any 3 people in the world, who would they be and why?
I would pick Nandan to be the CEO of this company. I think what he was able to first create at Infosys and then more importantly in terms of giving to the country Aadhaar, I think that's a phenomenal leader who understands the true power of technology but also understands how to navigate the business world. We need a practitioner of technology out there. The one that has touched my heart and changed my sort of tech career was Vishal Sikka. I think a true go-getter in the tech world. The energy that he brought to new solutions was tremendous. The vision to be able to utilize technology was tremendous. And I think we need sort of the best people's person.
Manish, if you were in my seat and had an option to put anyone there to interview, who would it be and what are you itching to ask them?
The founders at Google. It's not an organization that I've done a lot of enterprise work with, but I think Google has shaped an entire generation of millennials on what they do. The founders have sort of shaped that organization and then they've chosen a new leader who represents the new tech leadership of the world, as I would say in Sundar Pichai. That transition would be amazing to understand from them.
What's the end goal for Manish Choksi? What inspires him to be at work every day?
So what inspires Manish today till 2018 was trying to build a better Asian Paints. I think what inspires Manish today is obviously continuing to build a better Asian Paints from an ownership, from a board perspective. Is there a way to replicate that size, that scale in newer businesses that you could sponsor, that you could mentor? That really is what drives me today.
Manish, your Quickfire with Qunba starts now. A leader's biggest asset is
Best use of time.
one thing you've learned never to do as a leader,
Talk a lot.
one thing you've learned always to do as a leader,
Listen.
one thing you wish people knew about Manish Choksi,
What makes me happy?
one thing you wish people knew more about Asian Paints,
The scale of operations that we have.
an Asian Paints achievement you are most proud of.
The way we treat our customers.
What's been on your personal to-do list for the longest time?
Kick back and spend 5 days without tech.
One thing to keep in mind when managing a millennial workforce.
They all want a place of belonging. For an organization to be able to provide that is extremely important to them.
One thing never to do while managing a millennial workforce.
Sort of order them to work like an army.
Manish Choksi's most prized possession is
Maybe my watch.
10 years from today, Asian Paints will be.
We'll be the largest decor company in the world.
When in doubt, Manish Choksi dash.
Is dependable.
Data or instincts, what do you rely on most?
Instincts.
हर घर कुछ कहता है, tagline of Asian Paints. Manish Choksi का घर क्या कहता है?
Ghar kya kehta hai? I think we are a happy family. I have a granddaughter now. That's an interesting phase of life to go through.
Gattu's advice to Mr. Jindal and Mr. Kumaramangalam Birla.
Coatings is a hard business. It takes long to build it well.
The first thing you do in the morning, the last thing you do before winding down.
First thing in the morning is check mail. Last thing that I do at night is to watch something on Netflix.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
One thing that not many people know about Manish Choksi.
My love for red wine and single malts. Some people know, but not a lot of people.
If you were to send the first consignment of colors to the moon, which colors would it be and why?
Whatever Asian Paints picked as the palette for that year, we would send to the moon.
Manish Choksi's legacy will be dash.
A stronger Asian Paints, a more connected Asian Paints, and a more purposeful organization.
Manish, if there was a gigantic billboard out there and you could put a message to millions of young leaders, what would it be and why?
Live in the moment, because you shouldn't regret your past and you can only look at the future.
Manish Choksi, thank you for this wonderful chat with Qunba. It's been an absolute delight having this conversation with you. We'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you answer. Manish, last section, these are all surprise questions.